to today's event, our panel discussion, Mastering the Art of Teaching Public Speaking to Gen Z Students. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Paul Cotter. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Stukent, and I'm thrilled to be with you today. As we begin, I want to encourage you to use the chat feature. Go ahead and start out by telling us where you're from. Tell us where you're teaching. Maybe even share some of the current struggles that you're experiencing if you're teaching public speaking right now. We'd love to hear that. If you have any questions during today's presentation, feel free to type them in the chat. Our amazing team is standing by in real time, and we will answer those questions throughout the event or during a Q&A at the end. All right. Hi, Molly. Welcome, Lena. Molly's from Youngstown State University. Lena is a student at ACC. Welcome. Let's see. We've got Tara Williams. She's one of our presenters today. Dawn from Austin, Texas. Alexander from Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We're excited to have you here. So besides today's event, we have many more that are upcoming, including a panel discussion titled Increasing Student Employability and Career Readiness, as well as our annual in-person ProfCon event in June. Be sure to follow the link at the bottom left section of your screen to learn more or register for any of these events. Also, we will be giving away tickets to ProfCon to 2 lucky winners attending today's webinar. So if you're interested in a free ticket to ProfCon, then answer this poll that's popping up on your screen right now. And if you've never been to a ProfCon event, they're amazing, they're wonderful, I highly recommend it. If you are unable to stick around for all of today's session, don't worry. We plan to share the recording with all attendees, along with any of the links and resources that we shared throughout today's event. And this does go without saying, but please be respectful and polite when commenting today. But before we get into today's discussion, let's take a moment to explore the features and benefits of Stukent's public speaking courseware and simulation through a quick, informative video.
For students to command an audience's attention with the Public Speaking Simulation and Courseware bundle from Stukent. This bundle gives you powerful tools to prepare students to deliver authoritative speeches, presentations, and impromptu remarks. Stukent's public speaking simulation asks students to ideate, compose, and record various types of presentations, and walks them through the process of preparing a speech for a major event. Over 11 rounds, students will develop impromptu, persuasive, and informative oral delivery techniques, practice their critical listening and evaluative skills, and learn how to control their apprehension and anxiety. The simulation pairs perfectly with Tara L. Williams' all-new public speaking courseware. As a professor of marketing, Tara has taught public speaking for over a decade and has developed a full suite of resources for educators, including lesson plans, lecture slide decks, instructional videos, workshops, and more. The Public Speaking Bundle is a great complement to any business or communications course. These resources give your students a platform to practice their public speaking skills outside of class, so that you have more time to teach powerful techniques and strategies in class. With these turnkey, industrial-vetted tools, you can teach your students how to captivate a crowd both in person and online without the stress. Take the hassle out of teaching an effective course and score high marks on your student evaluations with the Public Speaking Bundle from Stukent. If you would like to see how the Public Speaking Bundle can supercharge your classroom, schedule a walkthrough with one of our course consultants today, and be sure to stay current with Stukent.
Now, as a special gift, just for attending today's panel discussion, we want to offer you free instructor access to Stukent's Public Speaking Bundle. The bundle is a comprehensive package featuring over 100 instructor and student resources, including a groundbreaking simulation, continuously updated courseware, and a wealth of engaging assignments and auto-graded quizzes. All this is designed to seamlessly integrate theory with real-world experience. This bundle equips students with the skills and confidence necessary for success in public speaking. Additionally, excuse me, the public speaking courseware comes with a nerve control toolkit that Tara Williams has designed to help students overcome their anxiety and fears of speaking publicly. When you request access, you will get access to this toolkit along with all the other amazing student and instructor resources. So go ahead and click the link that's on your screen right now to get access, free access to this courseware. Now, while you're taking a second to request access, I want to invite today's presenters to the stage, and I want to briefly introduce them. First, we have Tara Williams. Tara is an accomplished expert with over 15 years of experience in academia and consulting. She specializes in communication, organizational culture, leadership, and interdisciplinary collaboration. With a Bachelor of Commerce and a Master's of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies, Tara offers a unique educational perspective, enabling her to develop innovative solutions tailored to specific needs. As a published author and experienced educator, Tara is known for her engaging teaching style and emphasis on collaboration, building strong relationships with students and stakeholders while also serving as a dedicated community leader and mother of two. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
Great. All right, now I want to introduce Dr. Angela Niedermyer, or Dr. N. Dr. N is an experienced communication studies instructor specializing in public speaking. She's based in Austin, Texas, with a PhD in interpersonal communication from the University of Texas at Austin. She brings a wealth of knowledge to her teaching, emphasizing rigor and equity. Beyond her academic pursuits, Dr. N proudly supports the LGBTQ+ community and has completed the ally training at ACC. Her dedication to fostering inclusive environments, combined with her mentorship and commitment to academic excellence, reflects her genuine passion for education and student success. Welcome, Dr. N.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have both of you with us today, and we want to thank you for participating in our panel discussion. So we're just going to jump right into the discussion now, and I'm going to start out with our first question. And Tara, we'll have you answer this one first, okay?
Sure.
So what are the most common challenges you encounter when teaching public speaking to students?
I think I could wax lyrical about this for quite a long time, but to focus in, I think it's the two extremes, is that we get students that come into public speaking class that are absolutely frightened. And then we get students that come into class and are like, I love to talk. And there's challenges with both. And so I think those are probably my focal point at the start of class, of communicating to each of them their fit and also what they're going to get out of the course. So with the students that are coming in and they have so much fear, I always tell them, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm so excited you're here. This is why this class exists. And I will never, ever let you fail, right? We're always going to push through so that you can complete everything. And so just really sharing with them about how they're going to focus on presenting. I find too often that we focus on presenting as opposed to sharing. And so just talking to them about, you have something really important to say, and this is your opportunity to say it, and just changing that lens of taking down that challenge with those students that come in really scared. With the people that come in and are so excited, I always talk, and so this is going to be so easy. And I always think, that's so great. I'm really glad you're here, but I need you to also hear what I'm saying, because often talkers don't have structure, or they don't think about their audience as much. They just really feel like they have something to share. And so making sure that they're being coachable and that they're listening to the feedback from their peers, but also myself. And so that to me is probably the most common challenge that I try and set up right from the beginning of the course.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. N, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm able to assess towards the very beginning is like, Tara was saying, you've got students who are way up here and you have students that are more here with the amount of experience and then also with their anxiety levels, right? And so I want to come across as a human being first and foremost, and I make sure to make plenty of mistakes in the first week or two so they know that I'm a human being. And I want them to know that half the people who go into public speaking for their jobs might do it in order to slay the dragon. In other words, they're doing it to prove to themselves that they have that self-efficacy. And they might be picking the one thing that is so difficult for them to be able to do, right? And so I want to make sure that they know that they're in the right place, that they do belong, and that we all struggle with public speaking and we all struggle with certain parts of it, right? So if you have someone who loves to talk, like Tara was saying, learning how to listen and incorporate feedback is important. And then if you have someone who is really scared to talk, then I have certain things, I'll go into a little bit later that help students to focus on, little parts of public speaking at a time as we go along through the semester. So I'll share more later.
Great, thank you. I love that you start out with intentional mistakes on your part. What a great thing to help them feel comfortable, and what a great cover for you, right?
Yep.
Intentional mistakes, yeah. All right, let's go to the next question. How do you address stage fright or communication anxiety in your students, and what strategies have you found to be effective? Dr. N, why don't we start with you on this one?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to work with. It's one of my favorite challenges, the communication apprehension that students have. And I've worked with plenty of different types of students who have different types of apprehension and that are triggered by certain parts of and certain events of public speaking. So it might be the prep of it, it might be the research of it. It might be staying with one topic and being able to narrow that topic. That's doable. Those types of things. But what I've done when public speaking is really the obstacle, the actual obstacle is getting up there or getting on the stage if we're, virtual as well, is I have them do little things like, hey, do you have an iPhone? Yeah, sure I do. I'm like, okay, go on to notes or whatever it is that you have. And I want you to dictate something that you're reading, just something off your desk. And I want you to record yourself just for like 2 minutes. Okay, you don't have to listen to it. Just do that. Okay, now go get the newspaper or go get an article or something and let's try it. Let's try it again. And we just kind of start that desensitization, right? Without calling it that. Yeah. And so before they know it, they are on Flip or Flipgrid, right? It used to be called Flipgrid. And they are in front of the camera. They're using their own camera. They're recording themselves, which is a huge skill that they need to be able to do with technology these days. And they're maybe even interacting a little bit more in class, right? Because they're getting that self-efficacy along with all the cheerleading from everybody else in the class. I want to raise a class full of cheerleaders that cheer on the person who is doing the public speaking, for sure.
That's great. Thank you. Tara, what do you have to add?
I love all of that. I think the first step is like the switch to the focus on sharing versus presenting and just dulling that spotlight, and decreasing that. So I already talked about that. I do a lot of meditation workshops and activities within my class. I do specific days of learning different types of meditation and coaching them through just things that would work for them, because everyone's really different. Usually on those days, they leave my class looking a little like we had too much fun in the classroom, but it's really nice to see the difference and change. And I usually plan it at a time in the semester when they're really stressed too. And so we do a lot of that. I also will stop my class when they walk into the classroom, and you could feel that energy in the classroom of like tension, and like those accounting profs, I'm sure they have an exam because it's likely accounting that they're all stressed about, and they're kind of in that nervous space. I stop class and I start with a breathing exercise, 3 to 5 minutes, and just take that tone down. And it's just showing them that it works and just getting them to practice it, because we all say, go and practice, at the, go home and practice and do meditation when you go to sleep. Yeah, who else is going to do that? But if you show them that it works, then when they actually need it in those really stressful moments of going to present, then they remember that it actually works. I also apologetically put them in so many uncomfortable situations. I throw them on an elevator with a business colleague of mine, and they have to introduce themselves. It's the fastest, hardest 30-second assignment they ever do. And it is the assignment that I get feedback years later every single time that was the assignment that made the difference. That 30 seconds that put me so far out of my comfort zone made me actually think about who I'm talking to. And I got the job because of that and those uncomfortable moments. And I always say, like, if you freeze and we're on the elevator, we'll go back up, right? Like I don't want you, I don't get excited when you freeze. I'm like, haha, I got him. Like, I don't, that environment is so important, which you had talked about as well, Doctor, and like creating that culture. And then I also, within the courseware, I just added this year within the public speaking learning to share with confidence and purpose is new activities to help increase people's confidence, but also decrease those nerves. And so asking them to do really uncomfortable things outside of class, and they kind of like slowly increase in intensity. And you can add those to the class and have them as discussion points or have them as journaling, and just challenge students to be more uncomfortable, because I think that those are what really decrease stage fright. And we do a lot of assignments in class, like they're constantly working on assignments, and that's why.
That reminds me of one, if I can share, that I did with my business comm students, and they were in the kind of the public speaking and interviewing type part of the class. And I had them, I said, okay, you're stuck in somewhere in North Dakota at an airport. You've got good Wi-Fi and you've got your laptop. You're supposed to have a meeting with, a business group, or you're supposed to be presenting at this time and then I use like a Canada's type of time zone. So they have to do the time zone differential, figure out where they are, and then be set up by the actual time of the actual interaction. And so I'm like, okay, get everything ready, make sure you have your background okay. And they're just in class in their laptop, but I'm having them pretend that they're in a noisy airport. And so it's just a fun little role play. And then they're like, okay, is everything straight? Does this work? Okay, I think I'm ready. Time, like I got there on time and everything. So it's the prep too, but I'm really curious about the elevator and how do you maintain communication with the student that's in there? Do you have walkie-talkies, or what do you do?
I stand in there.
Oh, you're in there at the same time.
I stand in there with a clipboard, and they come on, and then other people come on. And I always say to my students are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so embarrassed when other people come on. And I say, you know what? They are more uncomfortable than you are. Like we have control of the elevator. They don't. And so they come on and they're like, what is going on? But people kind of gotten used to it by now. And I actually was at the gym the other day, and a girl I was working out with goes, "Hey, you're the elevator lady." She had just finished her education at the college, and I'm like, "Yes, that is me." But so I just stand there, and we go up, and then on the way down we give feedback, and then the next person comes on, we go up, and on the way down we give feedback, and it has just been like so wonderful. I choose a business person that I know really well, that I know is going to be warm. I have a lot of friends that would not be, right? Like, you know, and so I have someone that I use all the time, and they give really good feedback. The online stuff is really cool too. We did that for mock interviews in teaching communications. And the one thing I loved about that was, you know what? I had my backpack on my shoulders and I looked like an idiot when I walked in. Great. So when you go to your interview, don't do that. Or I walked in and I had my sunglasses on my head. I'm like, great. I'm so glad that happened today. I'm so glad that happened today. Or that you had gum in your mouth. Awesome. I'm so glad that happened today, because this is where that happens, right?
This is the perfect data experiment. Yes.
Well, and just like make the faults here. Sweet.
Yep.
Awesome. Right? Like that's why it should happen here.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, these were great examples. I didn't think about the elevator not being a controlled environment, and that other people would actually be getting on and off. How that's fascinating. Tara, Molly asked how you prep them for the elevator exercise.
So we have a one-day prep the day before the class before, and we just talk about how would you introduce yourself and how would you set yourself apart? Because in my class, half of my students are business and half are education. So I always say, like, when you walk out of here, you're the same person. Like in my eyes, as like your papers look the same. So what makes you different? You have the same education. And so I'll give you an example. Education students, they're always getting on and they're like, hey, yeah, I'm in education. I love kids. I should hope so. Like, you don't, there's an issue, right? But what's that difference? Like, who are you that's different? You know what? When I was in school, I was not a good student, and it was really hard for me to connect with teachers. And I want to be that teacher that connects with hard students. Whoo, boom, right? Like, that is totally different. Or I'm an athlete and I want to help other athletes. Or I was in musical theater. Sweet. Guess what? We now have a volunteer. You are in, right? Like what is that difference? What is that thing that you do that's different, that sets you apart from that other person? And it's just focusing on that. My elevator, I live in Medicine Hat. The elevators are not high. Okay. So it's very, very short. And so what is it that you can say that when they come down, the feedback we center on is like demeanor, posture, professionalism, but also the one thing I'll remember about you. And so she'll always say, the one thing I'll remember about you is this. And if that is not what you want them to remember, then you need to change your elevator story. You didn't focus on what that one thing is. So that's what we really focus on, is just like narrowing down to your audience how you want them to remember.
Yep. Well, and I think I'm also getting something out of your answer there where you're talking about you're really kind of honing their strengths and having them know how to play to their strengths, right?
Absolutely.
To come up with their narrative of what, you know, how they want to be remembered, and how they want to stick out from the rest of any other client or any other person that those people are going to meet that day, right? And you can even bring that in further into the actual dynamic of the class, right? So it seems like you have a good eye for when a student has a specific skill, and then you're able to play to that skill, because that obviously helps them gain that self-efficacy, because they have that little job, right? Or you know, you're in charge of this, and it
helps them see their role
all the way up.
Yeah. Sometimes though too, they don't see what they see. Like, so they'll tell us stuff and we're like, what about that? And they're like, is that unique? And you're like, yes, it's so unique. Oh, you know, because they, you know, when it's you don't see it as necessary. You think everyone else is the same too. So
yeah, sometimes they just need a sounding board to know how skilled they are.
Yeah.
And we all need that.
For sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. Those were some great activities. And Dr. N, you did touch a little bit on a virtual activity that you do that involves the airport and a virtual meeting. I want to talk a little bit more about that right now, and maybe I'll have you start out. But in the era of virtual communication, What are some of the new challenges that have emerged in teaching public speaking, and how are you adapting your approach?
There's a lot of changes since 2002. We'll put it that way, and that's how long I've been teaching public speaking. It used to be everything was on one day, or you had 3 or 4 days of class period that you had to use to do all the performances, and it was very formal, and it was very, if you didn't get done, you were in the hallway, the last class kind of thing, writing on a carbon copy, like like that's how it was, right? And we would be like bringing our video camera, full-size video camera, to the next class right across campus. And this happened in South Dakota, this happened in Texas. It's just how things were. And we would grade videos like that after having recorded things. And now there's such a flexibility of modality, and I love it. I love it because students, by the time they've gotten through their second or third performance, have really realized that they're no more easy online recording it yourself, or in front of an audience, or in a real room. They're all difficult. So there's different ways to prep for each one of those. And I really try to make sure that they're comfortable with really anything that the public speaking universe throws at them, right? So a project might include something where they have to be in charge of a Zoom room, right? Especially like my business comm students. With the public speaking students in the public speaking area, they would need to be confident on multiple platforms, recording, putting their presentations together, explaining their visual aids, still interacting. And then sometimes we'll have a project that's in a completely different modality, where they're in the group Zoom, and everything is live. And then sometimes I'll have them use Panopto, Flipgrid. I've had them use Vimeo. I've had them use Loom, lots of different platforms. And then in another public speaking class, it's a 4-week intensive public speaking class that I teach down at Kaiser University online. And that they have to either choose between live on like our, not Zoom, but our Blackboard area, or they have to record it and then get it to me, right? Because it's a distance class. And so they have to know how to use YouTube or Vimeo or Loom, or record and then have this huge video, right? A really heavy file. And they have to know how to like upload that to their Google Drive and then be able to just give me the link, right? So all these new skills that are required with the technology that has changed, so that they're really comfortable, not only just preparing, giving the presentation, but then being in charge of, actually getting it to me and getting it out to their audience. So like some of the presentations, the rest of the class needs to be able to see it so they can give them feedback, right? And so how do we make sure that students know how to put their presentation out there so that everyone else can see it sometimes, right? Because we need that as well. So there are a lot of different projects.
I love that. Tara, how have you adapted your approach?
Oh, I like all those ideas. We have some approaches that differ between public speaking class and our BizCom class.
Mhm.
And so those are separated. In public speaking, I have stayed focused on face-to-face delivery for the 42-hour course.
Mhm.
And we have some online pieces within that 42 hours, but we've stayed focused on that. The place that we get the online application is in the simulation. So
Mhm.
the students alternately outside of the classroom participate in the simulation and go through that over our 14-week course, which is where they record online, they get peer feedback. And so they're constantly going online, but I do keep it outside of the course for the most part, except during their final project, they do a presentation and they record it, and then they send me that recording as well with an assessment. So they personally assess themselves, and then I send them my own feedback, and then they deliver it finally in the class, just kind of around the idea of like, why are TED Talks so good? Because they do the same speech every time. And if you're not doing the same speech more than once, how are you going to get it that much better? And so just watching that progression, and also teaching them that actually practicing, as much as we tell them to practice, actually practicing is beneficial, and seeing that difference and having things prepared ahead of time. So online, I don't do a ton. I love all your ideas on all the various platforms and stuff. That is not done within my public speaking course. So I'm going to think about that a lot. I mean, they do upload to YouTube. There's, a really immature version of it. They do more of it in the biz communication.
Yeah.
But I feel like the face-to-face, it just needs to be so heavy in my 42-hour. I'm not willing to take any of that out right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
And it's some of the classes I have that choice, and some of those classes I don't, right? And so I take the face-to-face as I can get it. And I, try to help the students who are doing not face-to-face to grow, especially in that 4-week online class. Because I mean, if they wanted to, they could show up, twice a week, and they could give both. There's only 2 presentations. It's just like a 4-week. You breathe in, it's week 2. You breathe out, it's persuasive speech. It's like done, 4 weeks. It's a great gig. Anyway, for me, it's a great gig. But they're able to have quite a bit of face-to-face time like this, right? In like office hours and in live performance in that way, where they have actual people cheering them on and that kind of thing. But yeah, it kind of depends on which class I'm teaching, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Those are great suggestions. It's interesting because normally I wouldn't consider public speaking as a course that you need to be so current in, but you've just identified so many different aspects of public speaking that are required to keep up with technology. So it's fascinating to hear this. I'm going to move on to the next question. Tara, let's start with you on this one. How do you balance teaching the fundamental principles of public speaking with incorporating contemporary communication technologies and trends?
I think that for me, this question really comes down to the title of this seminar, which is Teaching to Gen Z. And Gen Z needs to know the platforms, but also I feel like the students just want to know the application. Like, why do they need to know this? Like, why are you giving me the models? I just need to speak. Why does this matter? And why does this matter in real life? Because I'm here to get a job, and I'm here to have a future and a career. And so I really just focus on building the fundamentals and connecting them to a real life experience and workplace examples. So for my education students, when we're talking about impromptu speaking, why is impromptu speaking? And I'm like, well, when you are a teacher and you have my child and I'm upset and I'm coming in to talk to you and I'm Mama Bear walking in, how are we going to deal with this? And you need to be really on it and communicate in a really clear way your values and your teaching, but also know that you're dealing with me. And so how can you feel comfortable in that? And so just giving those real life examples of the connection between, okay, this impromptu speaking seems awfully silly, and you're pulling out all these different topics, but it's a frame of mind, and it's building your brain, and it's building your capacity to take something and be able to communicate really well out of it. So I think just staying connected. I may have diverted from your specific question on technologies. We did just touch on technologies, but I think the trends of Gen Z are they want to know why they need to know it. And I don't blame them at all. Like, that's not a criticism. In all my years of teaching, the student has changed so much. And that is one place the student has changed, and I love it.
And it's great that you can share such a practical real world example with that, like
because they're just scared of having me walk in, Paul.
It's so real. Look at this mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a mother teacher, or whether it's with a boss or an employer, a coworker. Yeah, there's so many instances where that's applicable. So thanks for sharing that. Dr. N, do you have anything to add?
Let's see. So about technology.
Yeah.
Read a little bit of the last question. It has to do with contemporary technology.
Yeah, balancing the teaching of the fundamental principles with incorporating with the technology and trends.
Yeah, I mean, it's logistics. The technology has to do with logistics, right? So it's getting your speech, getting your message from point A to point B. And some people know how to do that, and some people struggle with how to do that. And I'm finding that more and more students, there's even more obstacles to getting their message out, getting their grade, right? Because they have to use these platforms. If they're taking an online class, they have to know how to record. They have to know how to, get their words from point A to point B. And they have to follow through and make sure that their audience can see it or hear them, or that there's audio or video. They have to watch the product and see if it's actually there, or if it's just a video of someone who's videoing themselves, recording themselves, and they just set the phone down up onto the ceiling and start their speech, which I've seen, or lip syncing, which I've also seen. And so, being able to call them on that and say, no, this isn't your real voice. You need to have an audience. You need to make this real. That was a first that happened last week. Not ACC. Where someone had just turned in this video, and they had just used a voiceover. So that's definitely one thing you got to be on. Yes, the one thing you got to be on your toes for, not just plagiarism, but using technology for the actual voice. And it was the case where English was not their first language. And so I totally get that. I mean, if I was giving a presentation in Spanish, it'd be different and it'd be more difficult for me, right? I know that much Spanish. But I said, it's important. You got to use your own voice. You got to do the hard thing. And so he did. He re-recorded, and, it wasn't really practiced, right? But he did use his own voice, and he did, comply with the requirements of that particular project, that speech. So watch out for technology too.
That is mind blowing. But you know what? I say it every semester. There's something new that happens, and you're like, I didn't think this would happen. Yeah. Something new comes about.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that's been really kind of eye-opening, is having students who are deaf in my public speaking class, and using the simulation. I'd love to pick your brain about parts of the simulation and parts of your curriculum, and how to make sure that it's really accessible to especially deaf students. So if you think the logic problem here, okay, they can see, they can't hear, so they need this, but then how do we get them to speak, right? So then we have out loud for assessment, right? So I have 2 interpreters in that class who do the translations, the interpreting, right, during lecture. And then we have the student record whatever they're going to present if it's not live. And then the interpreter comes in and does the voiceover of what the deaf student was saying. But we kind of run into a little issue with the simulation, because it's hard to know how to have the interpreter have the access to be able for that deaf person to give a presentation with no spoken language, but just doing, doing the ASL. So I really want to have a
Oh, I
chat with
love
you about
this.
all of
Yes,
that.
I
Yeah.
love this.
And the
Yeah.
accessibility there. So technology helps with that as well, because I'm able to teach a student who's in California,
Awesome.
who is deaf, public speaking, and they're able to be successful, and everybody's able to learn more about them, and they're able to share their narrative and their story, and even be deaf proud, right, in our class. And that wouldn't be possible, in certain other aspects of the class. So it's really cool to have an online class that I'm able to do that with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Well, that's a message I'm going to pass on to our product team here too, to see like what accommodations can be made for something like that. So that's
yeah, definitely. I've got feedback
yeah, great.
from a deaf student for sure. Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, well, moving on to the next question. What strategies do you use to encourage active student participation and engagement in your course? And I know you've talked a lot about this already, but maybe share some of your favorites. Dr. N, let's start with you.
Active. Well, forcing people into groups is a good way for them to interact, right? And so lately, I've been teaching online, although, I've done many, many years of face-to-face, and that was where we would just divide up the room and have them, go to a certain part of the room if they believed one thing about public speaking, or go to another part of the room, go over by the window if you think that this is true, or go over by the window over here if you think it's false, kind of thing. And so to have group discussions like that. The other way, I think my favorite way is I say, I can talk to you about public speaking in my way that I do that, but nothing really substitutes for you to be able to see it. And so what we'll do is we'll show example videos and we just pull them apart. I'll have them watch like 15 seconds and I'll go, what's going on here? What do you think? What are your observations? Let's talk. Right. And that pretty much keeps them on their toes. And I do that with that Florida class as well. And in the chat, they're like, oh, okay, well, the attention getter was, it could have been better because it wasn't vivid enough, or or boy, I don't know if that's extemporaneous delivery, right? They're really using their notes a lot more than they would need to, or it sounds like they're just reading it, or whatever it might be. But just pulling those apart, and I'm able to take that uncertainty that they might have about using technology, like for their visual aid, being able to explain the research that they're finding during a public speaking presentation, and show them, ways of doing that, and showing them where they get to even so students who kind of have more of it figured out than other students, right? That we're able to all kind of make these observations, and they're all valid observations. So it's cool. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah, those are great examples. Thanks for sharing those. Tara, what about you? What strategies do you use to help encourage active student participation?
I think just first off, and Dr. N referenced this as well, and I'm sure most public speaking instructors do this, is the creation of the culture right from day one. And that when being clear that when things are shared within this classroom and these doors are closed, they stay here. And this is what we talk about. And I think one of the most important pieces are right when you start having name tags, and I put my pronouns on my name tag right away. I don't ask them to, I don't say a word. I just put them there. And I feel like that's just like opening a door that someone may need to walk into. And so that helped creation of a culture, the chatting small group stuff. I let them be in small groups with people that they know right off the start and that they're sitting close with, and create that comfort level. And then I start moving them away. And I find that the culture just really breeds participation. It's just from then on, as they get comfortable with one another and they know that this person's really different from me, but I hear what they're saying, that it just breeds participation. I'm really lucky that my classroom is under 24 students every single time for public speaking. And I fight every year. It's supposed to be at 21 and they moved it up to 24 this year. And I had a little hissy fit, but keeping it small is such a huge part of that, because people do share vulnerable things within my classroom. A lot of workshops, starting those workshops in small groups and sharing with each other and providing feedback with each other, and then moving it to the bigger classroom. And that comfort level just goes back to that stage fright. It goes back to all of those pieces of just building a person that's confident in sharing what they have to say. And yeah, I think for me, it's building the culture, and then those groups and moving people to where they have similar ideas or not similar ideas, and shifting it from there. But I think culture is the foundation for sure. I actually had a student this year, this is like so self-indulgent, but I had a student this year who uses they, them pronouns, and at the final exam said, you know what, I've never taken my mask off in any classroom ever. This is the only one. And I just thought, holy crap. And that says so much about the students, not about me. It says so much about the students, right? That they are just like, that's why I love this group of students so very, very much, that they're just so open and welcoming. And when that environment is required, they see that and they welcome that. And I think that breeds participation in the classroom.
Definitely. Well, and it's that kind of protected, it's a safe space, but it's also an empowered space.
Yeah.
So people are able to actually share their narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speak to their experiences. And I think, a public speaking class, if it's well thought out and well developed, right, with the projects, that students can really make their mark in several of the different projects that way, starting real small and being, me being very transparent about why we're doing this particular thing. Well, it's so that you can describe your visual aid. Why are we doing this particular thing? Well, here we're learning about changing and modulating our voice, right? And so I go into even voice acting and that kind of thing, so that they know that we're just, visiting these little elements of public speaking as we go along. And sure, the expectation gets higher and higher as we go. But, at the beginning, we're starting with some very low risk, share my narrative, and even like a poster presentation where they share what their name is and what it means. And I find that's just a great first presentation. And then they get experience with doing a poster presentation, like for research even, right? And when we were in face-to-face, I would do like a round robin. So it would be loud as well, and people would be coming to the next station and watching the next poster presentation. So it's changed a bit with COVID and with being online, but I tend to do that first to make sure that they're comfortable.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we have 2 questions remaining, so I'm going to jump right into the next one. In what ways do you incorporate feedback and assessments to help students improve their public speaking skills over the course of the semester? Tara, do you want to start out with that one?
I think feedback is just continuous. I had a hard time answering this because it's just like a list of stuff. Like, I provide feedback continuously. We discuss the feedback, and they can come meet with me anytime. I get them to record themselves and provide themselves feedback, and then I provide them feedback on top of that so that they can, compare and contrast what I'm looking at and they're looking at. And sometimes it's identical, which is really cool. And, there's just some opportunity there for that watching and forced watching of themselves, because I know I need to be forced to watch myself. We have peer feedback. So during certain assignments in the class, when some people are delivering, 4 other students are providing feedback and their perspective on the presentation. And so that's written and they get that back and they can go through that. And then small group feedback and workshops, constant discussion, or if we're practicing impromptus, 2 people talking to each other, and they're just like giving feedback back and forth, or what they would have talked about, and just that constant growth and listening. I find I had one student last year, it was so funny. I had never heard this before. And of course I've thought about it, but she just looked at me and she goes, when I'm speaking, you're just back there writing. And I said, well, that's really interesting. I said, there's two reasons I'm writing though. Like there's one reason is that I'm providing you feedback and I'm trying to help you grow. And number two, I'm also writing down what you're doing awesome. So like, I want you to know those things, like that you're doing these really great things. And she ended up smoking my class. She did so well, but it was just that change of perspective. She just saw me sitting there and like, the old grump in the back, but the change of perspective, that it totally changed her. She was able to take feedback after that and she grew so much. But I'm so grateful she said that to me, because I was like, oh, I need to address this and I need to make sure the students know why I'm here, even though I know why I'm here, right? And they can have that perception.
Yeah, and I try to make sure that students know I'm not tricky. I'm not strategic.
I say that.
I'm not a chess player, okay? What you see, this salty human is who I am, okay? And so I'm not trying to trick anyone. I want everyone to be successful. I know you all can be successful. And I'm going to give you tips and strategies, and I'm setting you up for success in these little ways that, I've even maybe forgotten over the years that I've built in, starting small and that kind of thing, but also just like looking at one specific part of the public speaking process, really focusing on the structure. So they have logistically, they know what they need to do when they get up there, so I have kind of this lecture that's like, all right, Dr. Ann, you say that I'm going to have my cards up there and I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that, but what am I going to be doing, right? Like during the presentation, what am I actually doing? And I'm like, that's what we're talking about today. These are the things you're actually going to do. And then I have them practice that, and we're able to kind of give each other feedback about like, okay, well, that was an oral citation. We don't know exactly where it came from, but let's work on that and make sure that we're citing our sources the way we need to. Or you gave us this great statistic, but we have no idea how it relates to your topic. So let's add another sentence or two where you relate it to your topic. Or how do we not be robotic? Let's talk about that, right? And so just these bits and pieces throughout the semester. And thank goodness most of my semesters are 16 weeks long, because it gives you just about enough time to cover what you want to cover before you let them leave.
Okay, I'm going to jump into some of the questions that have been presented by our audience today, because I think there's some good things here. How do you guide students who tend to read word for word from their notes while presenting? And what do you think about using cell phones instead of note cards while presenting? And whoever would like to speak to
want me to start? You look like you want to.
Mine is an easy, simple answer.
Okay, yeah.
They're illegal.
They're illegal, yeah.
They're illegal.
Yeah.
Like you get to the point you don't have a note. You don't.
Yeah.
There are none.
Yeah. So with cell phone, what I've found is when students try to use a cell phone, it's not foolproof. In other words, a note card doesn't black out the screen on you, right? Like
your mom doesn't try and FaceTime you while you're presenting.
Oh, it's a picture of a cat. What do I do? Oh no, it's a messenger, And I've had, it's just, you're adding more technology, you're adding more what can go wrong. Keep it simple, right? And so you want something that is not going to change on you or turn off or anything like that. You've got so much to think about when you are doing public speaking. That cognitive load is so high. Make it easy for yourself, right? And so what I normally do is if I see that they are reading like word for word, I kind of coach them one-on-one to be able to say, okay, I hear and see what you're doing here. What you need to do is just have keywords in front of you. And then they're like, oh, lifeboat, giraffe. I'm like, no. Things that actually have to do with your presentation, that you want this to be the most helpful thing for you, right? So having it be in the structure that you're going to need, having it actually jog your memory of what you're going to need to be able to say. And you need to have this narrative ready, right? So if I see the word, ice skate alligator, then I remember, oh, that's a story about the ice skater with the alligator, like it's going to jog your memory. And teachers, I'm guessing you can, right? You can tell if they're reading like this, or whether they're looking at their notes and going, oh yeah, ice cream, da 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 da, and and then they start, and it's so refreshing, and it makes my job worthwhile when I start to see students who used to maybe have way more on their cards and think they couldn't do extemporaneous delivery, which is delivery from carefully prepared, honed notes, right? And to be able to see them have that self-confidence to go to that next level where they can start chunking way more, right? And then they're able to actually not do the up, down, up, down, up, down, right? And then I start to say, okay, it looks like you're kind of halfway there. Now let's focus on when you look down, when you allow yourself to look down. If you look down at the beginnings and the ends, right, then it really seems like you're reliant on what's in front of you. But if you have bigger chunks and narrative that you're able to use, that you've created, you're not going to sound robotic. You're going to sound real, right? You're going to be able to interact more with your audience, and you're going to look more confident because you're not using this, right, for what it can sometimes be used for. But no, none of this, or an iPad. I mean, people can use iPads and tablets, but it'll turn off on you if you rely on them too much. They're not going to work. And I don't allow them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Tara, you were very emphatic. Anything else to add? Like the legality of them?
There's none of my presentations that would allow notes.
Okay.
They do, I mean, they have a slide deck most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the slide deck is their framework. And so I coach them from delivering from that.
Okay.
If they read the slide deck, it's written in all of my stuff. If they read the slide deck, it's an automatic 0. It's not just a 0 in delivery, it's an automatic 0. And I'd rather them stumble over. And of course, like, put those numbers up there, because even though 52% right now, as soon as you start to present, that stress will be there and you'll forget that 52%. It's totally fair. That is there. That's your support network, right? And that is why it's called a support piece. But they're not allowed to have notes.
Yeah.
I teach them how to read off a script. I mean, that is a separate situation. They learn that skill. Absolutely. Yep. And that script is on paper, 100%. Yep. Teach them how to print it off, exactly how it's going to look. Don't staple it, like all of those little tiny details. But they will not hold a note card. There's like one that they can hold a note card in, but that's it.
Yeah. There's a children's presentation that I do that has to do with voice modularity, being able to change up their voice and their inflection and come up with character voices and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And so they have the book that the audience is seeing as their visual aid, right, on the screen. And it could have certain, animated slides and that kind of thing, however they want to make it. But then they also have a manuscript that's like color coded. And so I go through, like, I want to see that you're using this manuscript, that you've, put in the breath marks, that you've really thought about what's going to be helpful on this thing. And I have them do that first. And then we do get into extemporaneous speaking, right, where they have notes. And really the main reason that they have notes would be for their evidence, right? So I have them use their cards. They have to say which ones are their evidence cards, make sure they're labeled, have them in a certain way so that I'm able to set them up for success with an oral citation that way. Because I ask for like 5 to 6 of those, like one for each subpoint. And I've found over the years that students are more likely to try it and to make sure that they are going to oral cite when they need to, if they have an evidence card in front of them. And so I allow them those evidence cards.
Great. Well, Tara Williams, Dr. N, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a great panel. I've seen so many comments of people just commenting on what your activities were, and I think that people got a lot of great ideas from this. Yeah, it was very insightful. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Now, we will be announcing the ProfCon ticket winners following today's event over email. So if you answered yes to wanting a ticket, make sure you check your email later today. At Stukent, we have been working hard at expanding our communication course catalog over the last few years. Some of the new courses that we have added are PR case studies, advertising campaigns, IMC, PR writing, and strategic communications. Just popped up on your screen right now, a way that you can access Stukent's communication catalog, which features all 12 of our communication courses and simternships. Click the pop-up on your screen right now to learn more about those. Additionally, if you are ever interested in presenting at one of our events, we have a link on the screen that you can click on that and you can apply to speak. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. This was a great event. We thank you for your participation in the chat. We appreciate your continued support, and we hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And remember to stay current with Stukent. Thanks, everyone.